Hail the Overlord in this episode of Battle Guides, featuring Rexan. Rexan is a fighter who makes use of his great hit confirm to hit most of his opponents while using his unique ability to pressure them into not hitting him back, as he curses them every time they do so. This, mixed in with his ability to manipulate board positionings easily, makes this Overlord a threat to all of his opposition. However, even the Overlord has a few problems. Rexan is a slow character because he banks on the fact that his curses will make his opponents slower, which means that many of his plays involve knowing when to use the proper styles to take advantage of your opponents antiing their curse tokens, or not antiing their curse tokens. This, mixed in with the fact that his stun guard is much to be desired for, makes Rexan a risky character if you can't guess your opponent's plays right. Rexan's unique ability is Carringort's Curse. The first time Rexan is hit by an opponent who did not anti a curse token, gains a curse token up to a maximum of 3. If an opponent would gain a 4th curse token, he takes 2 life loss instead. During the anti phase, opponents may anti any number of these curse tokens for priority -1 and power -1 each. If an opponent antis curse tokens and does not hit Rexan, nor does Rexan hit that opponent, all antied curse tokens go back to that opponent's token pool. That just basically means that if both of you don't hit, curse tokens go back to the token pools. This is honestly why Rexan is such a fun character to play, as he makes every choice for your opponent counterintuitive, because you get stronger every time you're hit. And most of the time, most opponents can only win if they hit you. This makes hitting Rexan actually less desirable, and in fact, certain characters will choose to not hit you at all in order to dodge or not get a curse token. Being a brawler, Rexan trades, and trades often. Given his plus powers, he often trades positively. However, if you factor in your opponent anti-ing curse tokens, you'll see that slightly positive trades become monstrous life gaps. However, it's not always about the curse tokens. On his own and without his unique ability, Rexan is still an amazing brawler with great hit confirm, movement, and power to boot. It's everybody's first beat nightmare, Devastating. Devastating has amazing stats because of its +2 power, which is mitigated by its -1 priority. However, it has a passive effect that makes it so that Rexan cannot take more than 4 damage in this beat, meaning that paired with a strike, it technically gives Rexan stun guard infinity. It also has a start of beat effect that allows Rexan to advance until he's adjacent to his opponent, making closing gaps against characters like Caitlyn and Arya quite easy. I suggest pairing this attack with Strike for stun guard infinity and 6 damage, or Drive for better hit confirm against bursts. Enervating is a nightmare for characters that hit really soft and is a big inconvenience for characters who hit really hard. You see, its stats might seem lackluster, but most of its power comes from the effects. Not only does it have stun guard 3, but it also reduces the opponent's power by 1 for each curse token he possesses. And that also means that if your opponent hits you, he will get power -1 as he will be gaining a curse token. This technically gives this attack at least an effective stun guard 4 as your opponent gets minus power. Not only that, but on hit, Rexan gains power +1 for each curse token the opponent has. This style is an amazing trading style, as oftentimes you'll come out with a positive trade. In terms of attack pairs, I highly suggest pairing this with shots for more stun guard or malediction to give your opponent more tokens. Vainglorious is a great brawling style against Rexan's fellow brawlers. It has an amazing power +1. However, most of its strength comes from its passive effect that states that opponents at range 1 have power -2. This means that melee characters will not be doing a lot of damage to Rexan when he plays this card. Mixed in with possible curse antis, and it's possible that your opponent won't be dealing any damage at all. Its before activating effect even synergizes with this, as it allows Rexan to pull that opponent one space towards him, hopefully putting him into range 1. In terms of attacks, I highly suggest either Vainglorious Grasp for more priority or Vainglorious Drive for more hit confirm. Unyielding is a style that Rexan uses when the opponent has curse tokens. It has range 0 to 1 but power -1. However, this is compensated by its amazing passive effects. First of the passive effects is that the range of this attack also includes the space occupied by opponents who have antied curse tokens this beat. This means that Rexan can hit people all the way across the board or anywhere on the board so long as they've antied a curse token. This is an amazing pressure tool as it forces opponents to hold onto their tokens if they don't want to get hit with your attack regardless of range. The second passive effect states that opponents that have 3 curse tokens can't hit Rexan this beat. Now this pressures opponents into actually antiing their tokens. Notice how this style basically is a win-win. If an opponent with 3 curse tokens decides to not anti, they miss. If an opponent with 3 curse tokens decides to anti, you hit them regardless of range. That is amazing. When using attacks, I really recommend using Unyielding Strikes because it gives Rexan the stun guard he needs as well as the power in order to compensate for Unyielding's terrible power -1. Then we move on to Overlords. Overlords is one of my favorite styles because not only does it have great stats and power +1, it has some great effects too. On reveal, opponents lose 1 priority for each curse token they possess. This basically means that your opponent will have priority -1 equal to the number of curse tokens they have, regardless of whether they anti those or not. You see, if your opponent decides to anti them, the curse tokens effect gives them priority -1. If they don't anti them, Overlord's reveal effect will give them the priority -1. As such, the moment your opponent has a specific number of curse tokens, playing this card basically means that they have that much minus in priority regardless of their decisions. What truly makes this style powerful is its before activating effect, which allows Rexan to pull opponents a number of spaces equal to or less than his attack's power. This makes this attack great for confirming hits against opponents who are sneaky with their bursts and other movement effects. Do note, however, that you lose 1 power for each space you pull the opponent using the before activating effect. I highly suggest pairing this with strikes so that you have more power to pull your opponent with, or drives so that you don't have to pull as much. And last but certainly not the least is Malediction. Malediction is range 1 to 6, power 2, and priority 4. Now that's great because not only is it a fast attack, but it technically always has full board range regardless of your style. Not only that, but its on-hit effect gives opponents 1 curse token, meaning they can gain 2 in a single beat if they hit you. As an added bonus, if you hit them, its on-hit effect also makes it so that Rexan can take more than 2 damage this beat, meaning that he'll almost always be trading positively as a majority of his attacks have power +1. And if that's not enough, its end of beat effect allows Rexan to pull opponents up to 1 space per curse token they have. This makes it so that Rexan has an easier time keeping them within his melee range next beat. When it comes to partners, you can't go wrong with Enervating for stun guard or Overlords for more priority. Rexan's 2 Overdrive finishers are 0 Hour and Black Eclipse. 0 Hour is an Overdrive finisher that's not meant to be used. Its start of beat effect deals 3 damage to opponents for each curse token they have. And at the end of the beat, opponents with 3 curse tokens are eliminated from the game immediately. Now this might seem like a terrible Overdrive, because opponents can just anti and it does nothing, right? Well, that's the point. You see, it pressures opponents into starting to anti their tokens. And as Rexan, that is great for you because you want them to anti your tokens because you want to trade positively. This becomes even more important at lower HPs because this means that they'll have a hard time knocking you out. Remember, 0 hour is meant to pressure your opponent into antiing tokens, not to actually be used. However, that does not mean that you can't use it. If your opponent's still not antiing those tokens, make him pay. On the other hand, Black Eclipse is a short-range, high-priority, decent power, overdrive finisher. What it lacks in hit confirm, it makes up for in its amazing on-hit effect. On hit, opponents' stats can't go beyond the values stated on their bases for the rest of the game. This means that your opponent's range, power, and priority will be at maximum whatever's written on the bases. However, it does not say that they can't go below. This means that your curse tokens still have an amazing effect on your opponents. And this pressures opponents who have many stat bonuses, for example, Schecter and Demetras, as their priority can no longer shoot up into high values, which makes your curse tokens useless. Personally, most of my games see me using 0 hour to pressure my opponents into antiing those curse tokens. However, in practice, I don't actually use 0 hour and end up using cancels instead. Advanced strategy with Rexan is not that hard as most people think. You see, most people are too preoccupied with the curse tokens. I should guess how many curse tokens. Curse tokens this, curse tokens that. However, looking at all of his cards, you see that Rexan is just an amazing brawler. All of his moves give him some form of hit confirm. Be it Devastating start of beat effect, Enervating stun guard, Vainglorious and Overlords, pull effects, Unyielding's passive effect and natural range, as well as Malediction's full board range. As you can see, Rexan has almost no problem hitting his opponent, and most of the time, they come with effects that allow Rexan to trade positively. Be it Vainglorious and Enervating's passive effects, or the power +1 that's present on a majority of his styles. You see, the key to Rexan is you're the Overlord. You shouldn't be worrying about those things. Everybody else should. Your opponent is going to worry about your curse tokens, even if some people say it's just -1 power and -1 priority. The thing is that it's all about trades with Rexan. What used to be a life gap of 1 suddenly becomes a life gap of 2 or 3 or 4, depending on how many curse tokens your opponent decides to anti. As such, Rexan's game plan works a lot as long as his opponent antis, even if your style dictates that your opponent must have curse tokens. Key examples of this are Enervating and Unyielding. You see, even if these styles require your opponent to have curse tokens to activate their effects, remember, for each token that your opponent is antiing, he's technically reducing the amount of damage he does by 1. And that's great for you because you're dealing 3s, 4s, 5s, or 6s most of the time. And that is the key to Rexan's strategy. You want to be dealing damage almost all the time and not care about whether your opponent's gaining your tokens or not. You see, that's for them to deal with, not you. The only times these become relevant are when you're trying to predict your opponent using an Unyielding, or if you want to maximize the damage on your Enervating. Otherwise, it's all about trading and making sure that Rexan comes out on top when you and your opponent hit each other. As evidenced by the Devastating passive effect, as well as the on-hit effect on Malediction. Make sure that you're losing less life than your opponent and you'll win the game in no time. Another advanced strategy with Rexan is to dash. Your opponents will most likely dump all of their tokens on attacks that have high stun guard or high power or immensely high priority. Use this to your advantage. When you feel that your opponent is about to dump all of his tokens, use a dash. Because of Rexan's unique ability, that means all of those anti-tokens will be put back into your opponent's token pool. Rexan is a character about attack pairs and picking the proper attacks for the proper situations. As such, here are a few attacks that will help you along the way. First off is Enervating Malediction, which serves as an amazing opener as well as an amazing move throughout the entire game. Not only does it have full board range and an effective stun guard 4 because of Enervating, its effects meld so well with each other. You see, on hit, Malediction gives the opponent 1 curse token, which means that on hit, Enervating gives you even more power, making this attack potentially deal 4 damage if your opponent started off with 0 curse tokens. Next up is Overlord's Strike. Now it might not have a lot of range or priority, but this attack makes up for it in power and stun guard, having 5 of both. It also meshes well with Overlord's reveal effect, possibly making you faster if your opponent has enough curse tokens. But the best thing about this attack pair is its before activating pull, as Rexan can technically pull the opponent up to 5 spaces if he just wants the proper positioning. If you want to deal damage to the opponent, you have to be pulling 4 or less. What's so great about this attack is that even if your opponent dashes, Rexan has no problem with that. With the power to pull your opponent up to 5 spaces, you can pull your opponent at the opposite end of the board all the way next to you, making your next beat that much easier as you are a melee character. And finally, we have Vainglorious Grasp. Vainglorious Grasp is not exactly the fastest attack, but this attack banks on your opponent using some curse tokens. Its before activating effects allow you to pull the opponent 1 space, then advance 1 or 2, giving this attack a technical, effective range 1 to 4. Not only that, but since Drive lets you close the gap, it means that your opponent will be at range 1 when you perform this attack, meaning that they'll have -2 power. If they antied any curse tokens at all, your opponent, more often than not, will not be dealing any damage to you this beat, which makes trading that much better for our friendly Overlord. And that pretty much does it for this episode of Battle Guides featuring Rexan. And if you're planning to take this evil Overlord to the battlefield, here are a few last-minute tips. Number 1, curse token management. Remember, that's not your job. It's the opponent's. As Rexan, you shouldn't really be worrying about your curse tokens unless you're playing Unyielding or if you're planning to hit a Black Eclipse. Just remember, have a feel of your opponent on whether he's antiing or not, as it can be very beneficial to you. Number 2, brawling. Brawling is Rexan's life and blood. Literally everything in your kit facilitates Rexan as a brawler. You close gaps, you pull opponents, you deal a lot of damage. Take advantage of that. Remember, as Rexan, you love to trade. If your opponent's antiing a lot of curse tokens, that's fine because you will almost always come out with more life. And finally, don't forget to dash. As Rexan, dashing serves a secondary purpose other than dodging your opponent's strongest attack, and that's snapping back curse tokens to your opponent. It might not sound like a lot, but it actually proves to be very beneficial to Rexan, as opponents don't like antiing a lot of curse tokens on all of their attacks. Oftentimes, they'll choose to anti all the curse tokens and dump it on one specific attack. If you predict your opponent and dash them at the right time, it'll prove to be a nightmare for them and a field day for you. If this video got you interested in BattleCON and you want to know more about it, check out the links below. I'll provide it in the description, linking you to the website for BattleCON, as well as multiple forums where you can talk to some of BattleCON's veteran members. Not just myself, but other people out there who are better than me. It was such a great opportunity to be able to share Rexan with all of you. As many of you may or may not know, I actually helped Brad a lot in making this character, and he's proven to be one of my favorites in Devastation. A lot of people have been giving him a bad rep because his tokens aren't that good. Well, hopefully this video has shown some people how to use these tokens to their benefit, even if the bonuses aren't that good. Now, with that out of the way, remember, never forget your special action. Thank you, World of Indines. Thank you so much, and good night.